Welcome to the recorded version of the Habitat for Humanity information session, our partnership program toward homeownership. Please make sure that you listen to the entire presentation, as it will contain some important information that you want to make sure that you understand before you move forward with Habitat for Humanity. My name is Dee Dee Johnson. I'm the Director of Homeowner Services. If you need a Spanish-speaking staff person, you can ask for Catalina Frank, also in our department. Today our agenda will be reviewing a little bit more about Habitat for Humanity. We'll talk about affordable housing in our region, and we will discuss the steps towards homeownership and our program requirements. We'll talk a little bit about our Habitat homes specifically, and then we'll look at the next steps for you and look at the open application dates for our partnership program coming up in the near future. Habitat for Humanity is a global organization that serves individuals and families across the world and in the United States. They are an umbrella organization that we serve as an affiliate under. In Central Oregon, there are several other affiliates, so if you live specifically in other cities, you might want to check directly with those cities to see what their building cycle is like and their housing information sessions that might be happening there locally. For us, we work with many different community partners, including the Latino Community Association, Family Access Network. Many of you might have been referred here by other organizations. We strongly partner with the City of Bend and with Neighbor Impact, and we'll learn a little bit more about those programs as we go. You might have found your way to Habitat for Humanity today because you realize that you are paying more than 33% of your gross income on your housing costs. We understand that there are rising rental housing costs here in the area, and it's harder and harder to find housing. You're not alone, as there are millions of renters in the United States that are paying more than 50% of their incomes towards their housing costs. So it creates a significant issue and a lack of affordable housing in our area as well. So when we look at what you can afford to pay for your housing costs, we usually use about 33% of your gross income, and we'll go over some of those details in later slides. Let's look at the average home price in Bend, sitting at about $355,000. And we'll talk about this in terms of a 3-bedroom house, and what it would take to afford that loan would be about an average income of $51,000 a year, and that would get you a loan of about $247,000. So that's not quite the average home price in Bend, but when we look at the average rental prices per month for that same 3-bedroom home, that's about $1,800 a month. And with Habitat, when we say once you're within our income guidelines, we take about 33% of your gross income, and that equals a home loan of about $69,000 to $183,000. So still well below the average home price in Bend, but we'll explain a little bit more about how that works. A couple of our main requirements that we look at is that we're trying to see that you have a minimum credit score of 620, and we'll look further at what types of debt and those ratios that would help you qualify for our program. Typically with a home on the open market, you'd usually be required to have a down payment of about 20%. So on this average home price in Bend, that's about $71,000. And with the Habitat program, we don't require you to have a down payment. We do ask that you save towards the closing costs, but we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go too. Currently, our 3-bedroom homes are appraising for approximately $250,000. We'll talk about how we do that, but lots of community support and donations and reduced fees for services with the City of Bend. We do fundraising, and then proceeds from our restore go directly into supporting housing. And so an average 3-bedroom Habitat home is currently appraising for about $250,000, and the way we help build affordably and get that loan amount down to a place where you can afford it is through donations, reduced fees and services in partnership with the City of Bend, through fundraising, and through our Restore, which supports our programs locally directly. A typical 3-bedroom Habitat home currently appraises for about $250,000, and the way we keep this affordable for you is through donations, through reduced fees for services and partnerships with our city, through fundraising, and through our Restore. So let's take a Habitat example with a family of 4 that earns about $23,000 to $44,000. And we start with that appraised value of the Habitat home of $250,000. And we look at that same household and we say, okay, that $23,000 or $44,000 annual income a year equals a loan of about either $87,000 on the lower end or $220,000 on the top end. And that really is all based on your affordability. So 33% of your gross income at the time of the loan application is what your loan amount will be. That's the mortgage that you pay on. So the difference between the $250,000 appraised price and your mortgage amount is where Habitat comes in and works on those subsidies to make it affordable for you. So to qualify for this loan, you have to have a short-term debt-to-income ratio of less than 13% and a minimum credit score of 620 and the ability to save at least $1,000 towards the closing costs, which are typically $8,000. We'll talk a little bit more about those qualifying details as we go. So to finance your home through Bend Area Habitat, we're required under the same federal laws as any banks are. So we look at that long-term debt-to-income ratio, which would include the 33% of your housing costs, which include your taxes and insurance. And then we look at your short-term debt. If it's more than 13%, then that brings your debt-to-income ratio to 43% or more, and you would not be qualified then under those federal lending laws. So we'll send you a notice in the mail. You'll either receive a letter that says that we have incomplete information in the application, or we'll give you very specific information about why you might not have qualified and how you can then work on that and apply again in the future if you can. In addition, we require that our homes be owner-occupied, and we also have a right of first offer on the home should you need or want to sell it, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a later slide as well. Please let us know if you'd like to speak with one of our Habitat families and gain some insight from them. If you come to a live presentation, we typically have a family talk about their experiences in the program and what it means to them. So Habitat uses 3 guidelines for choosing partner families in the program, and those are all centered around need, ability to pay, and willingness to partner, and we'll review these in more detail. Some of the other qualifying guidelines include looking at bankruptcies that need to be 2 or more years from a discharge date. Foreclosure or short sale needs to be 3 or more years old, and legal residency status for the income qualifying applicant, and a credit score of 620 or more. We'll talk more about debt-to-income ratios and go specifically into our 3 Habitat selection criteria. So when we talk about need for housing in Central Oregon, we start to look at things like substandard housing if you're living with mold or poor heating, high electricity bills, or are you overcrowded housing? Are you living with relatives? We know that many of us are living in overpriced housing. Are you in unsafe neighborhoods? Is there a lot of police activity? Do you have children? And that becomes a concern. Perhaps you've qualified for a conventional loan, but you couldn't find a home in Bend in your price range. So we'll look at all of those when we look at need for housing, and we'll also look at other assets that you might have, such as significant savings amounts. That's not to say that it would disqualify you. It might be helpful to be able to use those toward your home, and that can work to your advantage as well. So we'll take all of those into consideration, as well as any special needs that your family might have. So when we look at your ability to pay, we start to determine whether or not you can qualify for a conventional home loan. So to do that, we start looking at your monthly gross income. We'll help estimate your affordable mortgage payment with Habitat. We'll review your monthly debt. We'll determine your debt to income ratio, and we'll review your credit history. When we get into the partnership application down the road, we'll also ask for you to submit 3 reference letters and letters of recommendation, a landlord reference letter, and 1 year of utility payment history, and that credit score of 620 or above. So when we determine your monthly gross income, we look at all the sources of qualifying income before taxes. So for some of you, that might include permanent disability. We look at retirement income, we look at Social Security income, we'll look at wages, and if child support is something that you receive, if it's going to last for 3 or more years, we can sometimes use that as a source of qualifying income as well. To determine your estimated mortgage payment, which will include your property taxes and homeowner's insurance, we take 30 to 33% of your monthly gross income. Next, we'll look at determining your monthly debt, and to do that, we look at things like your credit card, minimum payments. Even if you pay more per month, we'll just use your minimum payments required. We'll look at student loans, even if they're deferred student loans. Look at medical bills, any vehicle payments, other loan payments that you might have, or family support payments. What we don't include in your monthly debt to income ratio are utilities, groceries, or other miscellaneous expenses. Now, the reason why we look at student loans is because the payment might come due at some point during the life of your home loan. So some of you might have deferred payments, and if you can provide us with documentation of what those payments are, how long they'll be deferred, what type of an income-based repayment that would be, that information will be helpful at the time of the partnership program application. So why is debt to income so important, and that ratio between what you earn and what you pay each month? And why do we ideally want that to be under 13%? Well, it shows how much you can afford to pay once you've paid your housing expenses and other debts each month. And can you still afford food, clothing, transportation to and from your job, medical care? We just don't want to put anyone in a position where they can't meet those basic needs. So remember, your monthly expenses are things such as your car payment, your credit cards, your school loans, and not their utilities. And the reason why it's 13%, it's because we're looking at the short-term debt to income ratio. When we add that to the 33% of your housing, your mortgage payment, that total should not be more than around 43% to qualify for a home loan. Okay, so let's look at an ability to pay example. We'll take the example of a single mom with 3 children, so it's a household size of 4. Her monthly gross income is $12.50 an hour, and she works 40 hours a week. So we'll multiply her hourly wage by 40 and get 500. There's 52 pay periods in a year, so she makes $26,000 per year. We divide that by 12 months, and we come up with $2,167 per month. Now, her daughter also receives Social Security disability income of $650 per month, and because she's 10 years old, that's going to last for more than 3 years, so we include that in her income calculations, and she's got an income of $2,817 a month. Looking at her estimated mortgage payment, we multiply her monthly gross income by 33%, and that comes up with an estimate of $928 a month. And now looking at her monthly debt, we see that she's got a minimum credit card payment of $50 a month, $150 towards an auto loan. She has estimated deferred school loan payments at $38 a month. We took 1.5% of her total school loan amount to get that $38. So when you put all of those debts together, we have $238 a month. So to get her debt to income ratio, we take that $238, divide it by her monthly income of $2,800, and you can see that her debt to income ratio comes out to be 8.4%. So our willingness to partner requirement includes 10 basic concepts, and we'll talk about sweat equity in this slide. Sweat equity is your physical and emotional investment in the mission of Habitat, and we have 3 goals with sweat equity, and that's partnership, pride in ownership, and development of skills and knowledge. We expect each Habitat partner family to do 500 hours total with a 200-hour minimum per adult applicant. So if you're a dual adult household, each adult will have to do 200 hours and the remaining 100 can be donated. If you're a single adult household, you'll have 200 hours to do and the other 300 will be donated, hopefully by family and friends and or volunteers that you meet along the way. Of those 200 hours, 75 hours are required at the construction site, with 16 of those hours assigned on your own home, and 75 of those hours are required at our restore, with some of those being at Habitat events. We do reserve an 8-hour monthly minimum for your sweat equity. In addition to the sweat equity, we require monthly savings for closing costs. We ask that you save a minimum of $1,000 towards the closing costs of your home. Because we don't require a down payment, we try to put you in touch with Neighbor Impact, whom you'll hear about as a part of the one-on-one in-person information sessions, or we can connect you with Neighbor Impact to have you look into their match savings program towards home ownership. We also have you participate in financial workshops. There are 4 financial workshops offered at Neighbor Impact. Those are offered throughout the year, and then 1 8-hour home buyer course. We also ask that you participate in monthly homeowner education classes with the other partner families going through the program, and those classes might be on topics such as home maintenance, property taxes, homeowners insurance, conflict resolution, being a good neighbor, and budgeting. Another important aspect of the willingness to partnership requirement is to match you with a mentor who can walk through the program with you. Now, that mentor is meant to be more of a coach to encourage your progress and your readiness. They are just another set of eyes and ears as you walk through the program. They're a communication support, and we ask that they are an experienced homeowner with a minimum of 5 years of home ownership. Your mentor does not necessarily have to be a Habitat expert. We ask that it's not a supervisor or relative, that they're someone that's local, and they will be more of an encouragement and support for you to complete assignments and activities that get you ready for home ownership. If you have someone in mind, we're happy to meet with that person and walk them through what it can potentially look like. And if you don't have anyone in mind, we are happy to work with volunteers who like to be mentors for Habitat families and find a good fit for you. The 6th and 7th requirements in the willingness to partner qualification are open communication and pride in ownership. And with open communication, we really expect that both ways we are communicating any changes that might happen. In your situation, if you have a change in your income, such as a debt or an income increase or decrease, anything of $500 more or less, you should be communicating with us so that we can make sure that you stay within those income qualification guidelines. Acceptance into the partnership program does not necessarily guarantee we'll be able to sell you a Habitat home, even if you meet all of the other requirements. So we need to stay closely in communication to make sure that your income and your debt is not being negatively affected because of something that might pop up on a credit report or because of a change in your housing situation or your employment situation. Pride in home ownership is really about your ability and willingness to maintain your home. It might even include involving your children in the mission and model of Habitat. It includes your ability to manage the continuous process of generosity and vulnerability that you'll experience while you're in the program. This can be very, very stressful, and we understand that it is a incredibly challenging time for partner families going through the program. But down the road, we're also looking at how do you expect to maintain the pride in your home as an asset, and expect your children, as they sometimes become adult children and can become challenging as well. And we want them to understand the respect and partnership that you're getting into today. In order to ensure that partner families complete your obligations in a timely, fair, and efficient manner, we've implemented a strike system. So the first strike could be something like missing a couple of classes, not completing assignments on time. We communicate with you throughout the process, and maybe some of those pieces are falling apart. The second strike it's a little bit more serious, and we usually have more of a detailed conversation about what's happening. Are there obstacles in your way? What can we do to reestablish some goals and get you back on track? By the third strike, it usually becomes more obvious in that somewhere along the line the partnership might not be working. Maybe you have a lot going on in your life right now. Maybe things have changed. Should there be an opportunity to self-withdraw from the program and apply at another time? It's also an opportunity for the Family Selection Committee to look at this and say, perhaps there's a need at this point to deselect you from the program. You'll be communicated with, should this be the case, very clearly before and during this process. And like we said, communication really is the key. Open communication is the key to avoiding getting too far down the strike system. Sometimes some of the more challenging parts of Habitat is to not necessarily know your home and your home location when you're accepted into the partnership program. But part of our willingness in this partnership together is that you understand that you have an acceptance of the assigned home based on your family and household size. Our household size is typically around 11 to 1,200 square feet, 3 to 4 bedrooms, sometimes smaller. And you also have the willingness to accept the location of your home. We've built, since 1989, 117 homes throughout the city limits of Bend, and we're currently working with other community agencies to continue to provide affordable housing in partnerships. So we'll continue building in Bend, and when you're about 75% of the way through your requirements, that's typically about the time when we know and can match you with an acceptable home size and location. Now, our right of first offer is a unique piece of Habitat, and understanding that is very important. It's a buyback right should you need to want or sell your home. So after 10 years, we have a shared equity model by which you start earning a little more of the equity in your home, and it would cost Habitat more to purchase it back. Within the first 10 years of home ownership, we would purchase it back from you for what you've put into your home. Much like if you were to rent, we would be paying your rent back. Now, we can't pay your property taxes or your homeowner's insurance back, but after 10 years, then there's a percentage model where each year after 10 years you earn more and more, and it would cost Habitat more and more to purchase it back. Sometimes we can't afford to purchase that home back, and we say it's yours to sell on the open market. You just have to pay off any seconds that might be on that home, and we communicate with you as you go throughout that process. And if you're interested, all you have to do is talk to Habitat, and we'll let you know where you're at and what that would look like. As you can see throughout the city map of Bend and the different neighborhoods, Habitat has homes placed in just about all of the neighborhoods throughout the city of Bend. This slide shows a little bit more detailed mapping of our right of first offer and how that looks within the first 10 years and then years 11 through 30. Finally, being a representative of Bend area habitat is a big piece of willingness to partner. It's your acceptance and your understanding of all of the above topics that we've discussed. It is being included potentially in publicity or interviews or speech opportunities. It is being included in website publications. You'll have coaching along the way and lots of support, but it's a big partnership. It's a wraparound family that offers you a lot of support, but the partnership in turn is that you're also there standing behind the mission and model of Habitat for Humanity. A part of the Habitat for Humanity partnerships with local area agencies include our partnership with Neighbor Impact, and they have a match savings program through their home source department where you can have a potential to earn 3-to-1 match for your savings. So if you save $25, they can match that $75 towards your closing costs and your home loan. So for more information about the Home Source Match Savings Program, contact 541-323-6567. And you don't have to be involved with Habitat in order to be involved with this Match Savings Program. So Neighbor Impact has some wonderful programs through their Home Source department, and we highly recommend that you look into them. So our Habitat homes are typically 1,100 to 1,200 square feet. They are usually 2 to 4 bedrooms, 2 baths. They may include a garage if we have space. They are landscaped so that there's very little cost to the homeowner once you purchase the home. If you decide you want to increase the landscaping or add irrigation, we leave that up to the home buyer. But we try to make the costs, the monthly cost to you, as low as we can up front. They're extremely efficient homes. We use in-floor radiant heat systems, tankless water heaters, and we use a maximum insulation quality. Homeowners get to choose from a pre-approved list of finishes such as countertops, painting colors, interior, lighting fixtures, and the current homes that we're building, because of the cost of the land, are higher density models. So we have embarked on our first triplex this year. Future homes might be duplexes or on smaller shared lot sizes such as cottage communities. We are still building single family detached units, but many of our homes now will be attached units. Homeowners still own the land, and the right of first offer still applies on these homes as well. Some of the other benefits of being a Habitat partner family and homeowner include meeting a whole new networking group that is a supporter, stands behind you, rooting for your success the whole way, resource referrals in the community should you need them, and the ability to make some strong, true, lasting changes in your life and your children's lives. So we very much consider it a hand up and not a hand out. And the opportunities for personal and professional growth are many. Some of the additional benefits of being a Habitat partner family and Habitat homeowner are gaining a new group of networking referrals and supporters that are rooting for your success the whole way. We give resource referrals anytime families come in to a point of need and a season of life that might be challenging, and it's really a hand up. There's lots of opportunities for personal growth throughout the time in the partnership program and as a Habitat homeowner. So the 5 steps that you can participate in towards Habitat homeownership are to 1, attend an information session, which is where you are today, or to listen to an information session. And in the next couple of weeks, we will have an intake form that will ask you to return. So those are also available on our website. and then we'll schedule one-on-one intake appointments where we start looking at your documents and looking at preparing you for the open application period. When that application period opens up, and we are estimating that should be sometime in the summer of 2017, that you submit a Habitat program application. And that usually happens twice a year depending on the construction schedule. We'll post the dates on our website, and we'll contact those of you in our database as well. And we also put that out in as many media sources as possible. We look at an 8 to 12 week process for that program application, which includes a committee review, home visits, and eventually board approval. And then once you become involved in the program, you're usually in it for 12 to 24 months, trying to complete all of the requirements before you then apply for your home loan and purchase your home. So after you turn in your intake form, we start looking at mailing you a confirmation of whether or not you included all of the forms that we asked for, and we'll send you some privacy notices and disclosures. We'll ask for your support in pulling a soft credit pull, which won't have a hit on your credit score, and then our staff will work to prepare your income and debt verification so that when we meet, we can review the process, verify the information, and show you what we're looking at. Usually by the second appointment, we start looking at goals. Are you ready for that application period? Are you ready for homeownership? How does your debt look? Are there obstacles and strategies that we can do together, set some goals together so that you're ready for that partnership program application period when it comes open? So if you don't meet the basic income guidelines, perhaps it's your debt to income ratio, or you are below our minimum income requirements, then we'll send you what's called an adverse action notice. Don't let this discourage you. It's required by law. We will give you some follow-up suggestions, some referrals to our partnership agencies that can help you look at what it might take to become qualified under our guidelines and other conventional lending guidelines. And we'll address what we feel like we can do to help support you in being prepared for applying for the program again. If you have any questions after going through these slides today and listening to the presentation, feel free to give our office a call. The next slide will address a couple of questions that we commonly hear in the information sessions, and that might be helpful to you as well. Some of the questions that we commonly get are, say my uncle owns a roofing company and he wants to donate the materials and labor on my Habitat home. Will this bring the price of my home down? Or perhaps Wells Fargo donated $10,000 to the construction of my home. Does that help bring my sales price of my home down? Unfortunately, the answer to this is no, because all donations are considered donations to Bend Area Habitat in general and not to a specific family. So this allows us to serve more families in our community rather than to apply it to just one home. And our homes are actually based on the appraised value, so that is actually your sales price. Your mortgage payment is based on your affordability. Remember, that's about 33% of your gross income. So having a donation towards one home can actually reduce the price for all of the homeowners, in that it's just a little less that Habitat has to fundraise for in order to build our homes. So after listening to this presentation, what you want to make sure you do is download and print off, or you can come in our office and pick up a copy of the customer intake form. Return it within 2 weeks by April 19th. You can also turn those in an envelope in a drop box on the outside of our building. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact myself or Catalina, and we will help answer those for you. Again, here's our contact information and the deadline date to return the intake form.